am so excited today to have Tess Scott with me. Tess and I, we talked a few weeks ago, and I just loved her energy. She's kind of like a storyteller like me. So I was gravitated to her. I was like, this lady is going to bring it because she likes stories like I do. So we chatted and everything. And she was like, oh, yes, I would love to be on your podcast. And I was like, I would love to have you. So Tess is here to share with us today. So Tess, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on today. I'm excited about this. I love telling stories just like you. You're right. I live in Sarnia, Ontario in Canada. That's right, where it's actually warm right now because it's summer. So we're good. I'm a mom to 8 boys and now Grammy with the heart above the eye to 9 grandkids so far. And I love to encourage women. So that's sort of my thing, you know. I love to speak to women. I love to write for women, and I love to just encourage them that they're not alone. Whatever the freak show of their life looks like today, there's more. There's more of us out here. That's all I want to say. So that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, and I like that you just said that, because when you encourage women, we can encourage women through stories.
Yes.
And that's what we do. We share with them our story, our past, and the things that we've gone through, and sharing with them, they connect with us. And then they're like, oh my God, I found someone who feels the same way or felt the same way as me. So yeah, that's really good. So I know that you listen to the podcast, and I know that, you might have had a hard time finding the story, but what story resonated with you? What story did you choose to talk about today?
Okay, so this is funny, but the story that I chose to talk about is called For the Bird Lovers. Yeah. I love nature. I love nature. It was, yeah.
Well, I was telling Tess that when I thought about the story, and I always write my stories out so I can pick out, how much detail I want to tell, and everything. And everything is true to heart. Everything actually happened to me. And this story really did. But when I wrote it, I had this feeling. I was like, people are going to think I'm crazy. But then I'm like, no, there are people out there that's really going to like this story. So the name of it is This Story is for the Bird Lovers. And let me tell you all a little bit about the story, just in case you didn't have a chance to listen to it, or maybe you've forgotten. It's basically, when I moved into my house, the previous owners, they apparently were bird lovers. So my entire backyard was designed to draw certain birds in. I didn't know about this. I was not a bird lover at all. I would come home and there would be blue jays and red robins flying around my backyard. And I was like, what are these birds coming from? What is going on? Now, what should have given me kind of like a little bit of a nudge to say this is for birds is the bird feeder and the bird bath that was in the backyard. I didn't pay attention to it, y'all, because it was my first house. I was just so happy to have it. So each day I would come home and it was a set of blue jays in a set of red robins. And I just started husband and wife. And I said my house was their vacation spot. Every day I would come home, they would come to the window. Hey, I'm like, hey. And then I start like looking forward to seeing the birds every day. I would come home and they would be flying around in the backyard, and I would go to the window, and in my mind, they would come up to the window and say hi. And I would say, hey, how was your day? Did you find food? And all just crazy stuff in my head. And then when the season changed, I didn't see them anymore. And I was like, well, what happened? Whatever. But they came back. But this year they came back and they brought relatives. That's what I say. They brought other people with them. And when I looked in the backyard, it was more of them. And then in a couple of weeks, they were baby birds. I was so excited. When I saw the baby birds, I was like, oh, yes. They brought people they brought them here to have their babies on their vacation spot. And then I'm like, they brought family with them, to see the birth of the birds. I made this whole story up. I'm a storyteller, you guys. So I had some issues with the gutters in my house, and I had to get them clean. Got them clean. And the gentleman apparently knocked their bird's nest down, and I didn't know. I came home, those birds was panicking. They kept coming to the window, not the regular hi. It was the regular like, what happened? What's going on? I mean, they were flying crazily in the backyard and I didn't know what was going on. And they kept flying and flying and flying. And then I looked down and I saw the nest and I was like, oh my God. He tore down their nest and now the babies don't have anywhere to go. Mom and dad are panicking. And then the people, you know, the guests that they brought with them is like, what happened in this hotel spot? You know, what happened to this place? I was so hurt. And I asked the birds to forgive me, y'all. I did, because I didn't know it happened. And they forgave me because they didn't go away and not come back. Yeah. I know they had to rebuild. So anyway, that's the gist of the story, but you need to listen to it because it was some other things, you know, that's in there about the bird feeder died, breaking, and all kinds of other things happened. But those birds were forgiven to me. So Tess, when you heard that story, what were your thoughts on it?
I thought, oh, I love nature just like that. I understand. And I think that, like, you think that makes you look crazy, but I think that when we see things like, you know, the birds or animals outside just in our backyard, like, that's such a gift. I think it's a gift that God's just giving us that. I mean, and we can learn so much from the animals. Like those birds, they might have been, you know, upset that their nest got wrecked and they built another one, but they don't spend a lot of time worrying, right? Like it says that God takes care of the birds and gives them their food, and they just stand. Somehow they hear the worms under the ground, which is just freaky to me. And then they pull one up out of nowhere, and you know,
I never did that before. I thought they just had great eyes, like they had like hawk eyes, and they saw it. I didn't know they. Oh my God, I'm learning.
Like they hear the vibration or something, I think, and then they just pull it up out of nowhere. And I mean, it's just really fun to watch. It's really fun to watch birds and insects and God's creation.
Yeah, you know, I didn't think I never thought about it really that way. You know, I mean, I can't say that I'm really an animal lover to the core. I won't say that, but I do enjoy looking at like butterflies. I just find that fascinating. The butterflies, you know, how they come into a butterfly. I love that. You know, I love looking at rainbows and landscaping, and that's where I see God's beauty, because I'm very visual and I love seeing it. But do you have a story that's similar? I mean, have you connected with something that was different than the regular norm, meaning like, you know, cats and dogs and, you know,
I understand. I'm an animal. I'm not especially a pet lover. Like I don't actually want to have like a cat or a dog or anything. Because it's just one more thing to take care of. And like I've already had tons of kids, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm done all that. But one day, so I was in the backyard and we have like, you know, some flowers and some herbs on a table and everything. And so there was these little specks on my parsley. And I just thought, I don't know what they were. And then as I noticed that they started to grow. So they started as these tiny little specks, like half a grain of rice, and then bigger and bigger, and then a stripe on them. And they were these tiny little baby caterpillars. So I thought that was really fun. So every day I'm going out, you know, I'm watching these caterpillars and they're getting like bigger and bigger, and then they turn green. And then, you know, a couple got eaten and that made me sad, but I mean, the bird was happy. But anyway, I was sad. So I'm watching these caterpillars. So then I did kind of some research about them. They were swallowtail caterpillars. And because I wasn't really paying attention in like maybe grade 4, I guess that was when they taught us about that. I was not paying attention, but I learned that, but once the caterpillar is on that parsley, it will never leave that plant until it's ready to make its cocoon. Wow. So I brought the parsley plant inside. See, there's no birds in my house, and put it on my windowsill to protect these 2 caterpillars. And then I named them Bob and Doug.
Oh my God.
Because I'm Canadian, like Bob and Doug McKenzie. So I knew that's a Canadian reference there. And I put them on my windowsill and I watched them grow, and then they got bigger, and then they turned green, bright green, so pretty, and big plump, you know, caterpillars. And I'm watching and watching. And then the day came that I knew would happen. And Bob set out on this grand adventure around my house So I came in and he's off the plant. I'm like, okay, here he goes, and I watch and he goes across the windowsill. And one of them was like way up at the top of the drapes at one point, and like in the kitchen in front of the fridge. Like, I don't know how they went so far because they mosey along really slowly, but they cover a lot of ground. So I'm very careful to no one stepped on any, like it's only my husband and I were here, but I don't want to step on him. You know what I'm saying? So we watched them do this whole grand adventure. And then I finally set up two like twigs from outside, kind of like a little teepee in the pot where the parsley was. And then they came back. Bob came back, and he crawled up there. And within about, I'm going to say 2 hours, there was just this really ugly, sad looking brown cocoon.
He was making a cocoon. Oh my God.
Yeah. So he just went there. He kind of hung upside down. And like I was working and stuff. So I'd come back and look because I'm so distracted, then go back to work, then come back and look, I wish I would have like whatever, like recorded it, right? So that I could watch it happen. That would have been cool, but I didn't. So anyways, I came back and it was just like, it's just kind of ugly because he was such a beautiful, bright green caterpillar and so vibrant. And then all of a sudden he's like, just looked dead. It just looked dead, like this dead cocoon just hanging there. And it was kind of sad. And then after, I bet you 2 weeks, and every day I'm checking it numerous times a day. I'm a little bit obsessive about this. Like, is he going to come out? Is he going to come out? So we went away. It was a couple weeks, maybe, I don't know, 2.5 weeks or something. And we came home and I checked it and the cocoon was empty.
Oh.
But where is the butterfly? Right. And so I'm looking and looking, and then I looked down and it was just on the floor. What do you call it? Like the floorboard.
Okay.
Like the trim of the wall below where he was, and his wings were still wet. So he was just sitting there, and I put my hand, he crawled onto my hand and then up my arm. I took him outside and sat there about an hour, and and I talked to him a little bit, and then he flew away. And he was so beautiful. He was the most beautiful butterfly you ever saw. He was so beautiful, so vibrant colors. And and it was like a happy day, right? He flew away and he was,
I would have gotten my phone and took a picture.
I did take a picture of him I took a picture of him on my arm, and for my grandkids and stuff,
Yeah.
But you know what? It made me think later when I was thinking back about the whole thing. I was thinking that when the cocoon was there and it was this like just such an ugly color compared to the green caterpillar, there was no life. And it was just dead and disappointing. And it looked like nothing was happening. From the outside, it looked like nothing was happening. Right. But then from that came this more magnificent, beautiful color. And we couldn't see what was happening, but it was more beautiful than what we started with. Right. And it made me think of my dad, because the year before in the summer, my dad had cancer. And we stayed with him while he passed away at home. And, he endured a lot of pain, and his body wasn't what it used to be. So he had a healthy body, and then his body deteriorated, was sick, and was a shell really of the man he used to be. And it was so sad. And then he died. But what I know to be true is that's not where he is.
Yes.
Sister, he will have a body that is way better than he ever had. Right. And that's our hope in life, because there's always going to be things that are disappointing. There's going to be things that seem bad. There's going to be, the ugly, the pain, the terrible things are going to happen. But we have a hope, because this is not our home.
Yes.
Not our home.
We're just here on assignment. And once the assignment, God calls us home. Oh my God, I love this. And I love the part, because as you were telling the story, I wrote down one word, and the word that I wrote down was life, because life is kind of like that. And I look at the caterpillar, the butterfly, I didn't see it which I'm glad you brought that out. It's absolutely great. But I looked at it as we go through so many stages in our lives. And I feel like once we get to the point where we realize that we really need God in our life, we become a butterfly, and
Mhm.
God is able to use us to soar and to fly and to bring beauty into other people's lives, because
Mhm.
that's kind of what our assignment is. Our assignment is to help others, to
Mhm.
love others, to bring joy to other people. And that's what butterflies do. When you see one and you look at the colors and all that, you smile, it gives you that inner something. Even if you're a little child, they'll run after them. An adult could be having a bad day and see a butterfly, and it'll bring a smile to their faces. And that's what we're supposed to do. I am so glad you chose
Yeah.
this story. When I'm doing interviews, sometimes you're doing interviews and my platform is different than others, and you think, oh my God, but this one brings joy to me because we took a story about bird lovers and we transformed it into something that can help someone who looks at life in a negative way by just taking a caterpillar or even birds, that's
Mhm.
swimming, you swing it back. And when I had bad days, I would come home and I looked forward to seeing the birds in the backyard. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just the small things that can bring you so much joy.
Mhm.
But I love that. You need to put that story into a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. That story is in my book. That's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's one of the stories in my book.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
it's so inspirational. So I know, so at the end of my story, I always share my thoughts on, what happened. And one of the thoughts I did have that I wanted to share is about how forgiving, I felt like the birds were really forgiving towards me. And,
Mhm.
I put a human brain in the bird's brain, in the brain. I'm thinking, okay, those birds thought she's so mean, she's so this and she's so that. And I just stood in the window and I just said, y'all, please forgive me, I'm so sorry. I didn't do it. It was that man on that ladder who cleaned my gutters. It was him. It was him. It was not me. And I felt like they forgave me because they kept coming back. They kept coming to the window. So those were my thoughts, but then I always ask questions at the end. So I'm going to ask the questions and you and I can answer these questions. Have you ever experienced an unexpected guest who became a friend?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the caterpillar,
Oh,
you know,
Bob.
Bob became a friend. And
Whatever
then,
happened to the other one?
well, that's another story. When he went on his grand adventure, I don't know where he went. I never found him. I thought, is that terrible? I lost a lot of sleep over that, Doug. I don't know where he went. I thought maybe he went like under a chair. I was going to find him, like he's going to eventually have to come out. I looked everywhere, like in the registers. So I wonder if he went under, like under the screen door. There's like maybe that little tiny gap there. He
Oh,
must, that's what I'm going to believe. I'm going to believe that he somehow crawled outside under that little gap and he is a butterfly outside somewhere, because no one found him anywhere. It was last summer. We would have found him by now.
yeah.
But he must have. Yeah, we never found him. It was kind of a weird second part of the story. He got out somehow, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's a
I
good
don't
way of
know.
putting it. He got outside. But did
Yeah.
you know that you could bring it inside? Because I would have thought that it would
Yeah.
have to stay outside. So did you do research or
I
something to
did.
find out? Okay, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, because I would have been scared. Oh my God, can they be inside?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I would be worried that they would crawl around, but they won't. Like it was several weeks that they just stayed on the plant. And but just I think just that kind of caterpillar, just a swallowtail
okay.
caterpillar on the parsley plant or cilantro, maybe they eat as well. But other caterpillars, I'm not responsible for. If you bring them in your house, I do not know if they will stay on the plants, but this kind will. So I did know that until the day they decide that, it's their time is due, and then they're on their adventure. But I think Doug's adventure took him back outside and Bob stayed in.
Oh, that is so sweet. For me, I don't, well, I shared this story about my aunt, one of my aunties, who she was a plant lover. And I got the love of plants from my grandmother and from her. And her plants were her friends. And she has me talking to my plants
Yeah.
in my house. And I treat them like their family, in the story that I share about one of my aunties, I share about one day she asked me to help. I asked her if she needed help because she brought all her plants inside the house. Now, my grandmother, she in the summertime, she would put all her plants outside on the porch. But my auntie, she had a big bay window with all her plants in. So they got like sun year round. And she was out there and she taught me some lessons with it. But one of the things I still do, I do not use scissors to cut off the leaves because she said that they are, you know, they have feelings. And she said, do not cut them, because I was going to go cut the dead leaves off. And she was like, no, you snip them with your finger. And as you're doing it, you explain to them why you're doing it. And I'm like, oh my God, my Aunt Jane has lost it. But the more I saw her interact with the plants, the more I saw her, I was like, okay, this is a labor of love for her.
Yeah.
And so I have plants. I have a piece of the plant that she gave me because when I left, I stayed with her while I was in the process of buying this house. And she gave me a part of it. And when she snipped it off with her fingers, she explained to the plant that she was giving it to me. And I explained to the plant that I would take care of it. And it is huge. It has blossomed into something beautiful.
Oh,
so that is my unexpected friend. And
did
then
you name that plant?
No, I did not name them because I didn't want it to be so personal. And one of the main reasons why my plants are not named is because when a dead leaf come on it, I can't imagine like naming something and then like the ear fall off. And now, you know, it's earless Bob. So I can't name the plants because, you know, the leaves are going to fall off. And then I'm like, oh my God, a part of Sally has just fallen off. Oh my God. You know, I come home and, and a part of the plant is dead. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's dead. Nope, they're plants, but I love my plants. You know, I water them and take care of it. And then the second question is, do you think birds can have a bond with people?
That's a good question. It sounds like your birds had a bond with you.
That was me being a storyteller.
That
was me being a storyteller, making this up.
I don't know. I guess if you had a pet bird, I'm not sure. I love watching birds in our yard, but I've never had a bond with them.
Oh, they don't come up to your window say, hi, Tess?
They do not. No.
No. I'm sorry, my birds, they do.
You're lucky.
I am, but I will say this, since I've written that story, apparently there has been some separation because I haven't seen the blue jays in I don't know how long. The red robins, they must have forgave me, but the blue jays may not, because I haven't seen them in a minute. But I do see the red robins still. They don't come up to the window like they used to. And I'm like, okay, we still harboring some feelings. You know, maybe they still a little bit upset with a sister, but I didn't know what else to do. You know, I just I didn't know what to do. But you know what, Tess, this has been so much fun. You have been pure joy. I love that story. Of course, I'm going to share that story with other people, especially the message that's attached. I think that is so key and so important, you know, especially if someone that's going through a loss, if they look at it as, you know, their spirit has just turned into a butterfly and it's beautiful, it has all the colors and it's free to soar. I think that would bring them so much peace to visually put that in place. And I remember when one of my favorite aunts, she passed away and she was blind. And I was having a really hard time with it. She was like a mother to me. And we were driving back from the funeral and I was in the car with my cousin and I was having a really hard time. And she said this, she said, you know what? She said, Auntie is in heaven and now she can see. She can see you. She can see everything. She is no longer in pain, you know, and just the fact that she could see was the one little thing that I needed to help me through it. Because I thought about it, I said, she can see now. She was blind for so long. And now and when she got to heaven, she was able to see God's glory. And that's the first thing she was able to see, not the earth, not down here. She was able to see. And I was like, okay, I can handle this. You
Yeah.
know, I can handle this. I'm happy. She's in heaven. She's not in pain and she can
Yeah.
see. So, oh my God, this has been so great.
Mhm.
So I want to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners, you know, what you have going on. I know about you have a book and I really want you to tell them about this because I think this is great. This is something that I'm kind of sort of working on doing. So
Yes.
please share with us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My book is called Listen, Sister, Finding Hope in the Freak Show of Life. So it is a bunch of stories, like you said, about almost 100 stories, small stories like that one's in it, and other stories of raising 8 boys, of growing up on a farm, of having a special needs son, of having cancer, of God reconciling my marriage after divorce. Just so many things, you know, like people say, you got to write a book. Well, so then I did. I knew God wanted me to share my story. To be honest, at first I didn't want to, because it's very vulnerable.
It is.
It is. And I want to be honest about my failures, about the times I wasn't trusting God,
Mhm.
because I want to encourage women that they're not alone. So whatever your freak show life looks like today, I also feed my kids cereal for dinner, and my children have also peed in the Lego. And so if you feel like your life is a freak show, and I think especially now women maybe meet a lot on social media. So if you're looking at Instagram and you think that woman has her life all together because she has that big, beautiful house with the wreath on the door and the pumpkin on the porch and everything's perfect, let me tell you this, sister. If you walk in her house and you go into that woman's living room, there is laundry on her couch,
It's a
just
hot
like your house. And we have to be real and vulnerable to other women and say, you know what? Yeah, I didn't brush my teeth yesterday, or whatever it is. Like there was no time. Whatever is going on, just we have to encourage each other, and that's what God wants us to do. So the book is full of short stories, short enough that you can read it while you're in the bathroom and your kids are like banging on the door, mom, 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 mom. You can read a story in, or while they're having a nap, or while you're at the doctor's office waiting, or like really short and hopefully encouraging. Every story ends with a verse and like a kind of a lesson, just like that one did, and what I learned from it. So you can pick it up anywhere. It's available at Barnes and Noble, Chapters, Walmart.com, Amazon, all the places. And hopefully it's encouraging.
You know, I love your book. And one of the things is your book is just Miss V, the Storyteller podcast. It's the same thing because all my stories, yours is just in written form in a book, but mine is a podcast. It's the exact same way. At the end, I give you my thoughts, and I also, share, ask questions and all that to give people hope. So it's the exact same thing. That is, I love it. And I love the fact that just like in my podcast at the end, you give like a scripture or something. Mine is not necessarily a scripture, but it's like my thoughts or something like that. So listen, you all, I will make sure you can get in touch with Tess. I will make sure that everything is in the description, so that if you want to buy the book, if you want to connect with her, you will be able to. So yes. So thank you so much, Tess, for coming on my podcast. You have been amazing. I knew you would because you're a storyteller. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I knew it would be fun.
Yeah.